Hello, everybody. I am here today with Dottz Gaming, and we are going to be talking about PvP in the Elder Scrolls Online. We have got a lot to discuss about this past year in PvP and what the future holds for the Elder Scrolls Online. And of course, we have got some awesome gameplay provided by Dottz Gaming. You can find links to Dott's YouTube and Twitch channels as well as his website down in the description below. So welcome, Dottz. Please introduce yourself.
What's up, guys? I'm Dottz Gaming. For those of you who don't know, I stream on Twitch, I make videos on YouTube, and I have my own website, dottsgaming.com. In terms of PvP classes, I'd have to say my favorite is Magic Dragon Knight. Been my favorite since probably September 2017. Basically been playing that class almost exclusively, but I played also Stamblade in PvP, Stamplar, bit of Mag Warden, and yeah, I've been playing ESO since about January 2017. I actually have not been playing as long as a lot of the other people, but been working hard to get as good as I can at the game, and it's been a good time.
Nice. So what style of PvP would you say you predominantly like to play? Do you like to play by yourself, small group, battleground, Cyrodiil?
I mean, it really depends. When I first started, I definitely like to play by myself a lot more because I was really trying to focus on getting better. But as of recently, I definitely like Q and BGs a little bit more because of, obvious reasons with Cyrodiil. But actually recently I started playing in Sothasil because I noticed the lag there is a lot less terrible than it is in Vivec. But when I go there, I usually try to play with like at least a small group because of all the, all the big Zergs running around and stuff.
So how was PvP for you as a whole this past year?
Oh, well, for me personally, I thought the PvP when Somerset came started to kind of decline. The introduction of, I think, Swift and a couple of the other gear traits began to really make the difference between Magicka and Stamina more exaggerated. I think Stamina for a while has had a bit of an edge, but I feel like that edge kind of really grew and really widened when Somerset came out. I think Swift was a huge offender of that. And then, Wolf Hunter came, and I think the issues were still there. And then, unfortunately, come Murkmire, instead of just maybe knocking down Swift the peg and looking at magical mobility across the board was slashed. So, the problems are kind of still there, but now everyone's mobility is a lot worse. I think things are beginning to pick back up for me, especially with the racial changes coming. I think we're going into a good year of balance, and I think we have a lot of good stuff on the horizon. But for me personally, I thought the ending half of 2018 was rough in terms of overall PvP balance.
That's actually really interesting because I found Somerset and On to be one of my favorite patches to play through. However, I do have to tell you that I main a Stamina Templar, so it could be a little bit of bias there.
Yeah, from the Magicka end of things, I definitely felt like the mobility, it was rough. It was really, really rough, the ending part of like once Somerset came out, because the Swift things is like, especially as a DK, I couldn't keep up with anybody. Like there was no chance. Like, if I was fighting somebody who was Stam and they started to get low, they would just pop forward momentum, get 8 seconds of immunity, and just run the heck away. And there was really nothing I could do about it.
I feel like as a light armor Magicka class that isn't something like a Sork, you're kind of pigeonholed into almost mist form in a sense.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly. And unfortunately, mist form and vampirism, especially ever since Somerset, with the buffs that we saw to light attacks, especially from destruction staves, made destruction staves even more desirable in PvP because, it used to be, you either run dual wield for the extra spell damage and the extra set bonus, or you try to stick a staff in your build. But then once staves counted as 2 pieces and they buffed the light attacks, more people started running staves, fire damage became more predominant, vampirism became less desirable. So it's like, it kind of had like, in my opinion, like a little bit of a trickle effect. And so vampirism became less desirable, so everyone's mobility went down because it's like, okay, get clapped by Dawnbreaker or not be able to move.
You either have the defensive capabilities or you're mobile, and that's the struggle of the light armor class at the moment.
Absolutely. I mean, recently I've been tinkering with, people who watch my stream know I've been tinkering with DK builds, like really like changing my Magic DK constantly since Somerset, because I've been trying to just find a style that kind of, captures what I'm looking for, especially, as I watch your play style, as well as anybody, that mobility is so important in the current state of the game. And so I was trying to find a way, how can I make my DK mobile, but not not cripple the survivability, cripple the damage, and just kind of find that balance between everything. And recently, I think I got something going on that's working well. But
That's
I
good.
have to run chains. I have to run chains in my front bar because that gives me that gap closer. It gives me a form of major expedition. But I mean, without it, it's anybody can just escape.
I feel like a DK is very slow, and the chains is definitely an incredibly useful utility for them if you do the
people
pull
are definitely
or the
sleeping
gap
on
close.
it.
Sorry.
Yeah, people are sleeping on it.
Yeah,
I think it's a really good skill.
I ran a MDK right as Somerset had come out, and I did dual wield resto, and I used chains on it with Torx packed. Nice dirty build.
Yeah, I remember that. I especially can notice the difference a lot, like, as when I played my Stamplar, when I played my Stamblade, like there was such a clear distinction, at least for me. I don't know how anybody else feels, but to me there was a huge distinction between when I played my Magicka characters and when I played my Stamina characters. I felt so much more powerful on my Stamina tunes compared to my Magicka ones.
I have to agree in general, because I have definitely dabbled in a lot of Magicka builds as well over this past year, and the only two that I felt stuck out on top still were Mag Sork and Magicka Warden, and everything else I felt was kind of struggling.
Completely agree. Those are the exact two classes. And the reason that Magicka Warden is so powerful is because of all the mobility changes that came in Murkmire.
And that kit.
So,
oh my god. That Magicka Warden kit.
So ice has become so prominent because, I mean, I remember going into Murkmire, I was telling everybody on my stream, I was like, I'm telling you, Magdans are going to be insane. They're going to be ridiculous. I think people are sleeping on them. And then that was released and everyone's like, permafrost ice blockade, charged frost staff, and no one could move. So it's just like the nerfing the class mobility, nerfing Swift, nerfing forward momentum, and then the addition of everyone and their mother playing ice has just made it for a really slow patch.
All right, so I did want to talk about the changes that ZeniMax has made this year. What did you think was the most impactful change for PvP buildcraft-wise?
Oh, that's tough. I don't know.
The next part of the question is what were the worst changes buildcraft-wise this year, but you already let me know.
Yeah, I think my worst ones was just everything with the mobility. I think the mobility was what should have been handled with a chisel was handled with a hammer.
Interesting.
Instead of them just being like, okay, let's nerf just Swift and see what happens, or let's nerf just forward momentum and see what happens. I actually did a whole video on my channel about this, where this past year, I felt like ZeniMax, whenever they nerfed stuff hard. Like they nerfed speed pots, forward momentum, and Swift all in one patch. So they just took and class forms of major expedition, 4 forms of mobility, nerfed in one sweep. And what the one that annoyed me especially the most was the class mobility, because I didn't feel like that needed to be changed, because that also hurt Magicka builds, which already didn't have good mobility to begin with.
It essentially puts things like Sork in another tier, because now they're even better, because they don't they don't have that slowdown that everyone else does from the major expedition loss.
And plus, the way I saw it was that the class forms of major expedition, like the major expedition from chains and the major expedition from the warded wings, like you're spending a resource to get speed. Like, to me, that's a trade-off. Like to spend all of that resources and get like 4 seconds of speed is nothing. It's so little. And I think
the only time you could say that that's an impactful amount of speed is if you really need it at that moment.
Yeah.
And I don't think that in PvP it's viable to be constantly recasting a speed buff every 4 seconds, to be perfectly honest.
Especially you know how it is as a solo player. You spend all of your resources doing other things.
Every last bit of resource you use is valuable and precious, and you essentially, when you play by yourself, you can't have waste, right?
Absolutely.
So that just results in a lot of extra waste for what you're trying to do. And I don't know. It's an interesting change, because there were some forms of speed that just didn't get hit as hard, like the bow dodge roll.
Oh, God. Oh, okay. So if we want to talk about where was the first question? Was it the most impactful or the worst?
The most impactful. So something that you felt was good for the game.
Oh, good for the game.
Or had a big impact. It could just be whatever you felt was like a very big change that you felt pivoted the game in a way.
Yeah, there's been so many changes that have happened over the last year. But I know like a super impactful change on the game was definitely the changes to draining shot with the amount of extra bow users we've seen now. But that was more of a that's more of like a buggy change because I mean like
Hmm.
they changed it and then it got the rune cage treatment where now it's buggy and no one can CC break it.
Yeah.
But
Well, actually,
in
draining
turn,
shots always had issues like that, to be honest, but
yeah,
it's been a
I think we
very
just notice it more
unpopular
now because
skill.
the range is so long.
Yeah. I like I like draining shot, believe it or not.
it's
Um,
a good skill. If you could CC break it, I wouldn't be
yeah.
as tilted about it. But a lot of my changes that I'm happy about, I'm gonna be honest, are not really anything that happened last year. I really was overall very unhappy with a lot of Zoss's decisions from basically Somerset on. What the changes I'm excited for are actually the ones going in Wrathstone. Like I know people have their opinions on the racial changes, but I personally am a huge fan. Overall, I think the racial changes are overall looking really, really good. I think it's very clear that Gilliam has had his hand in these racial changes, and you can see his thought process coming through those racial changes. And I'm very confident for 2019 because, like I said, for me personally, at the end of 2018. I wasn't overly happy with any of the decisions they made. That's why I couldn't think of anything that was good off the top of my head. Maybe the 2 second snare, like what's it called, immunity on wings, but
Mhm.
besides that there's nothing that sticks out to me as like, oh, this is an amazing change.
That
I
change for
think,
wings, just to be honest, was a game changer for Dragon
oh
Knight.
my god, it was so needed
Oh
because
yeah.
just removing it doesn't do anything. It needs to give it some tiny bit of immunity, and thankfully they did because now we can run that. So for me that'd probably be my big game changer change. But in terms of overall, I'm excited for 2019 just
Mhm.
because I think that the racial changes point to them balancing in a better direction. You can see the class reps are beginning to get more of a hand in things. Wheeler's in charge of the combat team now. You can see Gilliam's getting more of a role in it. So I think all of the right things are falling into place, and I think we're poised for a good year, content wise. I just think that they need to give Cyrodiil and they need to give the performance in PvP some love.
Yeah, I agree, and we'll talk about performance a little bit later
Yeah.
on in the video. I didn't want to jump into it right at the beginning. So, what would you like to see in PvP this coming year? Any preference for something?
Actually, in terms of what I want to see, one of the things that I wanted to see was they're actually doing, which was giving Imperial City some sort of love because I love Imperial City.
Hmm.
It's one of my favorite PvP zones, but no one goes there because to me, Imperial City is like a hybrid between Cyrodiil and Battlegrounds. It's like smaller scale open world. Like, yeah, there's some Zergs there, but there's so many little nooks and crannies that you can hide in. You can get into some really cool fights there,
Hmm.
and I just feel like it was just put in the game and then abandoned. And it's a
Yeah.
shame because it's whenever like there's the PvP event that's in IC, I'm always there and I'm always having a good time. So them giving Imperial City some love is definitely something like one of the biggest things I want to see moving into next year.
Do you think making it a new campaign will reinvigorate the Imperial City?
Potentially, I think it might make it a little bit easier for people to access, but I don't know if it still has enough incentive for people to want to go. Like if you go to Cyrodiil, you get your tier 1 rewards, your tier 2 rewards, your tier 3 rewards. But if you go to IC, it's like, yeah, I get Telvar, whoop de doo. It's like
Hmm.
there needs to be, I think, some more rewards tied to Imperial City. Whether they tie IC more to the main campaign somehow, but like I know they're making it like separate, so they wouldn't really be able to do that. So
What if they
I don't
made
know.
it a competitive kind of thing, similar to the Alliance War, where there's a scoring system, emperorship, and stuff like that? And you take districts in order to score points every hour, similar to how we see the Alliance War now. Do you think
Yeah,
that
that
would
that
help?
could be really cool. Yeah, they could make some new title within, maybe not make it Emperor, make some sort of new title within Imperial City that's specific for IC,
Interesting.
and get some bonuses there and get some stuff there. I think that could be really unique and it'll make IC something of its own.
That's really cool. So which class do you think is in a great spot today?
A great spot, I think, honestly, if I was to pick one off the top of my head, the majority of stamina classes I feel like are overall in a good spot. I feel like stamina overall is in a really healthy spot.
Hmm.
to me, like while there are certain stam classes like Stamina Warden and Stamina Nightblade that do kind of stand a bit like a leg above the others, to me, I think Stamina overall, I feel like is doing pretty well PvP wise, and then you have Magicka Sork is doing okay. Magicka Warden's doing okay in BGs because of what we talked about earlier, and then the rest of Magic is just kind of like help please. Obviously, is balance perfect? No, but I think that Stamden and Stamblade are I feel like they're well designed. Like you feel like they each have their own identity. They both feel powerful, and I'd rather see other classes buffed to be in competition with those classes than watch them rip those other classes apart to bring them down to everyone else's level.
I feel like Stamina, Nightblade, and Warden, they both have different kits, but both kit is really rounded and built for what looks like PvP.
Oh, they're perfect. Like I remember when I built my heavy armor Stamblade, I remember sitting down with the calculator and looking at the stats, and I'm just like, this isn't even fair. I'm like, I was looking at the skills that I had, the gear I was wearing, the amount of health I had, the weapon damage, and I was like, it's just so much.
Okay, Nightblade Warden's not fair when you're doing stat page builds, okay?
Yeah,
they get the
it's
minor
crazy.
berserk. You're already above and beyond what the other classes can achieve.
Oh my god, it's nuts. So I'd rather see, because I feel like again those two classes have really good identities. I'd rather see maybe Stam Sork and Stam DK get more of an identity. I think Stamplar got a lot of love with the last patch. I love my Stamplar. He's so much fun.
I think Stamplar really stands out because of Purge this patch and just how we have lots of snares, dots, defiles.
Yep, completely agree. I do think Stam DK and Stam Sork could especially use some sort of like more identity defining features so that they're less reliant on just the complete 2H line. And then of course, like we've said, Magicka in general just needs a lifeline.
So which class or specific build in general do you think is the most lacking in PvP right now?
I would honestly say Magicka Nightblade is probably the worst. And the reason I say that is because of the fact that Healing Ward was taken out to pasture and just completely taken out. Like I tested when I was testing the current Magicka build that I'm running, I tried to do it Destro Resto. Now I'm doing Destro SMB, but I tried Destro Resto because I was like, oh, maybe I'll use Ward Ally, combo it with Mutagen. It'll work decently well. I didn't realize how terrible Healing Ward / Ward Ally was now. Like it just does nothing. Like I remember prior to Somerset, I was able, you were obviously able to completely crutch on Healing Ward, and it would take care of your entire defense.
It was essentially a spammable heal shield.
Pretty much. And although, they did nerf it, I think they went way overboard. And it's honestly, it feels useless, like to me. Like I was getting attacked by 2 people in a BG, and I was spamming my shield. And nothing. Like I was just dying and dying and dying. I swapped to an SMB and used like fragmented shield and coag. Didn't have those problems anymore.
Damn, I've had similar experiences on Magicka Nightblade, but to make up for the changes to Healing Ward, I've gone for more health regen focus on my build, as well as making sure to run like Swallow Soul and stuff.
Yeah. But I think that change kind of hit them the hardest. I think, because I think. Overall, like I said, like Magicka Warden, Magicka Templar, and Magicka DK, they have their places in BGs. Open world, basically any Magicka class that isn't a Sork is not doing well.
Just because of the speed.
Yeah, exactly. But in BGs, there's less room to move around. You don't have as many. Like I said, there's a lot less room.
Yeah,
so the mobility becomes less of an issue.
Important as a whole.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. Because there's more things to hide behind, more pillars to LOS. There's just less stuff to worry about in that regards.
A lot of players have talked about lag in PvP. What's your opinion on the lag this past year?
Okay, so the lag question, the most loaded question with regards to ESO. So I've said this about PvP before, and I don't think my opinion on this will ever change. Balance of an MMO is always going to come and go. Some patches, it's going to be more balanced than others. Some patches, the balance will be great. Some patches, the balance will be horrible. It's just kind of the nature of the beast, and everybody who's played an MMO for any length of time should understand that that's a fact. But all of the times where the patches are bad, those problems become amplified when the game doesn't fundamentally work, because it's like, yeah, the balance is already maybe as bad as it is, or you're already struggling with X thing in a certain situation. But then it's like, okay, I go into this environment and I am relying on being able to click my skills to survive. And it's like I have to press a button 5 times before it even goes off. Like I have a clip that I posted on Twitter of me getting ganked by a sniper, and I was sitting there. You could see the key on my screen. I was on my warden. You can see me pressing Living Trellis, and nothing was happening. And so I died. And when something like that happens, like, yeah, if I died to the sniper and I casted my heals and I died anyway, it's like, yeah, whatever. I died. It sucks. I press respawn. But when I cannot physically play the game because there's a group of people 2 keeps over, that is when it gets really frustrating. And then it's like, why should I play when my buttons don't even work?
So I feel very similar frustrations as a long-term player of this game, especially PvP main. And for me, I've always felt like ESO is a very intricate game, and when the lag hits, the intricacy of the game is just gone entirely, and it becomes way dumbed down.
Yeah, I think I watched your video on that. I completely agree. You play so much differently when you're lagging, because it's like, oh, am I going to try to pull off this fancy move where I realize that 3/4 of it isn't going to even work? Or am I just going to spam all my defensive cooldowns and hope that I can live until I get some of my ping back?
Right. Oftentimes when I'm lagging, I find myself doing things like holding block and spamming the skill that I need to land instead of trying any animation cancel at all. So would you like to see ZeniMax focus more on performance this year?
Yes, I actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I said that in a video, I think like early last year. I believe they did a similar thing with One Tamriel. I don't know, because that was actually before I started even playing, where I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't they take a content patch off and make the One Tamriel update? I'm pretty sure.
I believe they took one content patch off before that. I'm not sure though.
Yeah, but they took a content patch off. I think they need to do something similar and take a content patch off and really work on the game's performance, because, and I've said this too in another video. I've done a bunch of conversations on this, where ESO as a game is, in my opinion, regardless of what a lot of people say, I know everyone's got their opinion on this. I think overall ESO is an extremely well-designed MMO. It's a lot of fun. There's so much intricacy to it. What you didn't have in other games that you do in this one is it's so obvious what separates a good player from a bad player. There's a lot of there's a lot of skill cap. There's a lot of things that you can do.
Physically see it when you watch
exactly.
them play.
All of that kind of goes away when the game doesn't work. And especially like if you have a new player come to the game, right? They play the game. They're playing it. They're going through their adventures. They get to the end of the game and they try PvP for the first time, and their ping goes up to 400. Or they get into their first trial and their raid leader goes, "Oh, by the way, the last mechanic of this trial is bugged and doesn't really work." It's like you get to the end of the game, you're like, why?
It can be a huge turnoff, and I feel like as a potential gamer who's looking to get into a game, it could be like, oh, I don't want to play this if I'm getting to the end game and it's so buggy,
Yep. Yeah, the good things of ESO bring people into the door, but then I feel like once they start getting into it, they're like, wow, the performance in PvP is bad, or wow, I'm playing in these trials and, the last mechanic is bugged and we have to do it a completely different way in order to actually be successful.
So it's like ZeniMax is struggling not to put out good content, because they are, but they're struggling to not repetitively shoot themselves in the foot with some of the performance that's related to the content release.
I think if they I believe this. I truly believe if they focus just for one patch, and again, I don't work for them. I don't know how much would need to go into it, but if they at least for just one patch could just really focus on just the bugs and the performance of the game. Like, yeah, in the short term, they might lose some profits because they're not selling the DLC. They're not selling, they're not making that money, but their long-term profit will be better, because players are staying, because Cyrodiil isn't lagging like crazy and people don't want to quit because of it, because the trials actually work, and when those people play the end game, they're more likely to sub to ESO Plus. They're more likely to buy crowns. They're more likely to get into the entire marketing funnel that they have put into place in the first place.
So you feel like if ZeniMax focused on retaining the existing players, it would be better long term than this focus that they have right now of bringing people in above everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Because plus, people come in, they start playing the game, and then what happens when they start having a really bad experience with PvP? They go and they tell their friends, hey, don't bother with that game. The PvP doesn't work. The trials are super buggy. Like, don't even waste your time.
That's a great point that you bring up, because I feel like PvP has had a lot of issues in the past in this game, and it has really negatively impacted the view of this game. And
Absolutely.
Not because most people PvP, but because the media that's consumed for this game is pretty heavily PvP oriented.
Agreed. And especially because I think the PvP on launch was one of the biggest selling points of the game.
So ZeniMax has confirmed Necromancer for the upcoming Elsewhere update on June 4th. How do you think Necro will impact the PvP meta?
I honestly don't know. I'm hoping that they fit in well, because I remember when Warden first came out, I remember something distinct when Warden first came out. It was that everyone was like, Warden is terrible. And then people started to figure out how to play Stamden, and Stamden was the most overpowered thing that anyone had ever seen. And then Magden was just like this pile on the ground.
Oh, little known secret, Magden was OP on release too. Just nobody played it.
Nah. But I hope that they can fit it into the game's current climate, I think is the word I'm looking for. That they could fit it in well, and that because again, it's going to be all around how they balance it. And I think if they balance it well, then I think it'll be well. I like the whole fire and forget thing that they're going with.
Yeah, I like the approach to the skeleton summons as well.
Yeah, it's not just like a reskinned Sork, but we don't really know too much skill wise, so I can't really say specifically what skills might be a little toxic or what might be a little OP.
I mean, that we'll see on the PTS.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So a good segue into our next question: do you think that ZeniMax will want to make Necro strong or weak on release?
Most likely, I'd have to say they're probably going to make it strong. I mean, generally, if you make this new class that people are going to buy weak, they're going to buy it, they're going to play it, they're going to be like, wow, I just spent all this money on this class and it's terrible. I don't think they should make it overpowered where it's just like, okay, pay to win class, because that looks bad for the game.
Yeah.
But I think that it should be obviously a little bit on the stronger side, kind of, around the whole Stam Blade thing we were talking about earlier.
So up in that higher tier, but not
because
class.
Absolutely, because that's where we want to see all classes at that higher tier eventually.
Yeah.
You don't want to release this dumpster of a class that people start playing and they're like, wow, why did I pay my money for this?
Or it's like, why am I in PvP if I'm not a Necro? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you don't want to make it this huge overpowered thing where people are like, "This game is pay to win." I have to buy this class.
Mag DK back.
Yes, exactly.
So ZeniMax has given us some soft details, but Rich emphasized that Necromancer will be heavily tied to bodies on the ground. Do you think they will be a must-have for group combat in PvP?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know if they'll be a must-have, but they'll definitely be a strength, especially for I think maybe potentially for small groups. Actually, now that I'm thinking about this as I'm talking about it.
That's
for small groups, it might be good, to have a Necro in your group, because if you think about it, right, if you're able to bomb a small part of the Zerg that you're fighting, and then the Necromancer could use all of those bodies to turn it into power.
Yeah.
You might be able to, as a small group, once you kill a small portion of the Zerg, be able to use those dead bodies to your advantage and continue to turn the fight more against the larger force. So potentially, yeah. Actually, I didn't really think about that. That could be good.
So another spin on the same question: do you think a group will suffer if they don't have a Necromancer, or will they be able to get by just fine with the other classes?
I think it's gonna depend again on the necromancer's power and how it specifically interacts with those corpses. You know, like if they're really freaking strong, then yeah, every group's gonna want to try to have a necro because it's just gonna make the difference between
Right. Why miss your
struggling
corpse
against the
buff,
group.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Struggling against a large group or being able to turn a fight easy once you start killing a couple players. So I think it's going to depend the state of necromancers when they're released, like how good or how bad they are.
So, are you excited for PvP in 2019? Is now a good time to get into PvP or come back to it?
Very much so. Yeah, I'm really excited. Like I said, I think I said it earlier. At the end of 2018, I had a really bleak view on PvP. Like I said, I took a couple months off and started PvEing because I was getting stressed and I was getting annoyed. So I needed to give myself that break because I was like going, I would finish my stream and, go back into the kitchen and just be like, ugh, like that was just, ugh.
I know.
Right after my stream, I just hop off and just have like a deep sigh.
I know, man.
Looking into 2019, I'm very optimistic. Like I said earlier, I think the race changes are a good indicator of the direction things are heading. And I know some people are going to get upset by me even saying that because I know some people hate the racial changes. I like them personally. And I think just like I said, with the internal shuffling that ZOS is doing with their dev team, with the direction that we're seeing with them balancing things. Because again, they're starting at the base. The way I see it is they're starting at the base and moving up. They're making CP so that it works more consistently with the rest of their game. They're balancing the racials first. So like the first thing you choose, what race do I want to be? They're balancing that first. And then maybe, who knows, maybe they'll move into weapons next, and then maybe they'll move into classes. So I think over the next year, and again, this is just my theory, I think we're going to see like a maybe a solid balance of the game with, like I said, them starting at the base and working their way up. So like I said, I have a very positive outlook for 2019. And yeah, I do think now is a good time moving into Wrathstone to get back into PvP and to start, playing and getting everything set up so that as these balance changes comes, you'll be equipped to handle them as they come and update your characters and whatnot, and just be a part of the whole experience.
That's awesome. I'm glad you're so positive for the future of this game. I as well am really looking forward to 2019.
Oh yeah, I think it's a big year for ZOS. WoW is hemorrhaging players. There's a lot of new MMOs on the horizon. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a very, very huge potential year for ZOS, where if they really do things right, if they balance things well, if they start to work on their performance, we could see ESO start to become one of the bigger MMOs, capturing people that are looking for a new game, capturing the people that are leaving World of Warcraft. And, a lot of those new MMOs might come out. Maybe they're going to be a little underwhelming. And so they'll try ESO. But I feel like if they don't, one of those new MMOs might begin to kind of sneak in and steal the potential that ESO, which is already an established game, could have grabbed, if that makes sense.
It does. I as well feel like ESO is poised to make that jump into the, if not the best MMO in the world.
I absolutely agree.
Coming year.
Yep. Especially because I still follow some WoW content creators, and a lot of them are beginning to talk about ESO. Like ESO is beginning to get a lot of attention now, and I think what they do in the upcoming months and the upcoming year is going to be very important because they have a lot more eyes on them now than they used to.
That's actually interesting because when ESO came out, it was dubbed the WoW killer, and it did not kill WoW on release. But 5 years later, it looks like WoW might lose some players to ESO.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things I give ESO credit for, and especially because I remember I tried ESO back when it first came out, and I openly said, I did not like it at all when it first came out, but then I ended up retrying it, and I've been here ever since.
There you go.
And yeah, it's definitely poised for success. All they got to do is just cash in on it.
It's been a long 5 years for the game. I think it's come really far.
They've really turned it around. It's actually, you got to give the credit where the credit's due. They've turned it around.
Oh yeah. So that's it that I got for you. Is there anything that you wanted to add that I didn't get a chance to ask?
No, I'm pretty sure we hit everything.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming and chatting, Dottz. Any shout outs you want to do before you head out of here?
All right. So if you guys want to watch some live PvP as well as I do weekly trials with my guild. You guys can feel free to stop by twitch.tv/Dottz Gaming. I also have a website that has a ton of beginner guide content on it, as well as builds for every class and every role, PvP, PvE, leveling, you name it. I got it on my site, dottzgaming.com. And I also have a ton of guides and montages and battleground footage and whatnot on my YouTube channel that you can check out as well. And I upload very frequently, so you can check out those 3 things for your daily dose of ESO content.
All right, and links to those, of course, are going to be in the description below for you guys. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I had a great time doing this interview. It was great to chat with Dottz, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the interview as well. If you guys want to see more like this, let me know. If you guys want to see specific people, let me know who you want to see. Remember, if you guys like this video, hit that like button. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, and have a great night, everyone. I'll see y'all next time.